Hello everybody, another challenge arising here against the very formidable name of Boss Potato. And obviously when you play against a player with such a name, you cannot stay kind of to ignore his name. It's not just a regular potato, it's the boss of all potatoes. So it should be quite a difficult game. On a more serious note, we have, I believe, the so-called pirc defense or 1g6 opening. It's basically not an extremely popular opening, I would say, so I think most people who play it strive for a very original game without too much opening theory, so it's very suitable for a lot of players which don't have the time or the power to study opening theory, so they just go for this kind of openings, which are not by any means bad, but I believe there is a reason why these kind of openings are only secondary to the main lines or more common openings like I don't know, Sicilian or Ruy Lopez. So yeah, so here we see a typical scenario for this opening. Black is very solid, but white has the pair of bishops, which I think should give him a slight advantage. Of course, nothing too dramatic didn't happen yet. Let's develop the bishop. So basically it's not so easy to make a huge progress with white here because the position is of very symmetrical nature. Still, I believe that most of my chances are in the queen side, so on the next move I will try to gain some space on the queen side, perhaps trying to create or provoke some weaknesses on that side of the board. I think now would be a good moment to play this move, even though I'm creating a small weakness for myself on a4 after we will play a5. Yeah, but I feel like at one point or another I will have to play this kind of move. So I think black has to play a5 here. I don't think he should allow me to advance my pawn on a5 and to grab space on the queen side. Also a move like knight c5 comes into consideration, but yeah, he just goes for a5. Now I think this is a good move. My knight isn't too well placed on f3, so I think it makes a lot of sense to try to bring it to a better square. Still not entirely sure where exactly I want to put it. Yeah, now my pawn is defended. It's a really tricky question how to make progress here with white. Of course I can just put my rook on the d file, but there is really nothing there for me to search, I believe. This position is so solid, kind of making it difficult for me to make something. Maybe f3 is a smart move, trying to consolidate my center, maybe to get the bishop here. But then he might play knight e6, trying to come to f4. Yeah, that's a tough question. Okay, I don't know, let's try f3. I'm not entirely sure I played very accurately in the last moves, because somehow black got a very decent position. Now he obviously wants to play knight f4, so I could just kind of give him the bishop pair, but then why should I be better if I give up the bishop pair? Then the position would be kind of equalish. Also, I can just kind of allow him to get to f4 and then trying somehow to drive it away. It's a bit of a risky strategy. So let's try to do it. I'm not entirely sure how to fight for any kind of advantage otherwise. And now his knight will, without almost no doubt, will land on f4. Yes, he played rook d8 first, but no huge difference that I can see. I wanted to play this move bishop f2 anyways. And actually his rook on d8 might come into some attacks later on. I'm not entirely sure. Maybe I should have put the other rook on d8, so leaving one rook to protect the pawn on a5. Yeah, knight h5, but now I think I can just play g3 and protect everything. If I could do that, I would be very happy, because this is one very critical square for me to control. So I believe the move g3 is very important. I don't see a reason not to play it. So now he might try some aggressive moves like queen g5. But I can always drive the queen away with a move like h4. So I'm not too, let's say, not too worried about this option. I believe he also made some inaccuracies, because I believe white now has consolidated his position, and at least it's not entirely clear now how to proceed with black now that he does not have any access to this square. So the g3 pawn is actually a very important one. It's actually preventing both of his knights to get to f4. In my opinion, he should have played this move knight f4 earlier when he had the chance. Still though, things are far from clear, but I feel now more comfortable with my position when there is no knight on f4 hanging around. So now it's basically up to him to find a proper plan. Basically, I thought that one of the ideas of playing the move knight h5 might have been to push the f-pawn forward. This is also a very possible idea, but it does open up this diagonal against his king, so it's at the very least something that black should be very responsible about. What about my plan? So basically, if we suppose that black does absolutely nothing special, I would like to improve the position of this knight on d2, which is not doing anything at the moment. Perhaps b3 would be nice, putting some pressure on a5. Even better would be c4, but the bishop is there. Yeah, so you played knight g5. Now that's a tricky move, because he just attacks my pawn and inviting me to play moves such as h4, but then he will check me and will take my good bishop on f2. So this is not an option. So what options I do have is either to protect the pawn by the king, so a move such as king g2 or king h2, probably king h2, or I can also protect it with the queen. I believe both are okay, so let's try king h2. Now we can try to attack the pawn once again with queen d7, but I think I can easily cover it with queen f1 at the worst case. And if, once again, if black is not doing anything too special, I might chase his knight away on the next move already. So I believe the pressure is on black right now to find good moves. Now queen d7 appears. Now once again, the obvious move would be queen f1, but yeah, one thing that I forgot about, that actually black might consider sacrificing his queen on d2 in this case, which is a very tricky position to play, because he will get a rook, a knight, and a pawn against my queen. This is perhaps not too promising, but do I really have a choice by now? g4 would be a positional suicide, because the knight will get to f4. The only real alternative is to play h4, but then the queen penetrates. It seems like I'm out of options, so I practically have to play queen f1. Yeah, now, yeah, black is almost certain play queen takes d2, just because I believe no other move makes sense. Because if black is not playing queen takes d2, I will just start pushing his pieces away, and there will be no much fun for black. But queen takes d2 really complicates the issue, because he will also take my pawn here with a check, and he will have enough material for the queen, and probably his position would also be not too bad. So I'm not so sure why he's thinking so much, because it's practically almost forced from him to go this way. Queen c7. Now this is a bad move, I believe. It does threaten a rook takes d2, but I have a lot of ways to deal with it. I can just move the bishop somewhere. I can also try to gain a tempo on the rook with a move like bishop c5. Also looks tempting. Even though bishop e3 is also simple enough. Let's do bishop e3, looks very solid. Now the queen is protecting the pawn on f3 very well. And now I'm already threatening to chase the knight away from g5. So there isn't much of a choice for black here, but to go to e6 at some point, now or on the next move after the knight would be under attack. But then I might even consider giving up my pair of bishops for a slight structural advantage. White's position is definitely not much better here. It's just that a couple of moves ago black had some tricks or some white has some small issues with defending all of the black threats, but now that the dynamics are over, in the long run white should keep a very stable advantage thanks to his pair of bishops. So this is why I'm quite confident about my position, even though the game of course has still a lot of moves to be played. Now I really have a principled choice whether to take the knight or not. I do make some serious damage to his pawn structure, but I also open up the f-file for his rook. So it's not an easy decision to make. Let's see. Also, what I like about taking on e6 is that I get this knight for this square for my knight, and this is a perfect square for the knight. It's putting pressure on a5, it's controlling the b6 square, it's putting pressure on e5. It's just the perfect square for the knight. So actually, I can also consider just moving the bishop without giving up the pair of bishops advantage, and only then play knight c4, but this comes with the price of one more tempo, and it could be an important tempo. So it's quite a tough question to answer right now. So do I go with the bishops or not? Okay, let's go with the bishops. Bishop a2. So basically my next move would be knight c4, almost regardless of his move. He can double his rooks on the d file, but I don't care so much. My rook is defended enough times. So basically black's problem is his light pieces, especially this knight on h5 and the bishop on g7, are really the lousy pieces. They're not contributing too much to his position, and I feel like black is counting on some accidental tactics to appear here rather than thinking about a plan of improving his position. I might be wrong though. Basically, the reason to my stability is my pawn structure, especially this pawn structure on the king side. You might notice that the pawns are controlling all of the important squares in the position without compromising any squares. So he played queen to d8, so I'm wondering if he is planning some funny stuff on the king side. I don't really see any huge threats, so I'm wondering why shouldn't I just continue with my plan. So let's play knight to c4. And I believe on the next moves we are going to see some sharp operations from black, because once again, from strategic point of view, his position, I believe, is quite bad. So his main chance lies in some tactical, let's say, complications. But as I said, it's not entirely clear exactly how can black create complications here, because the move f5 is very difficult to achieve with this bishop looking directly at the black king. So some sacrifices on f4 or g3 comes to mind. But, I really don't see where those are going. g5, so here we go. This is on one side a very committal move, so black is weakening a lot of squares in his camp, but I think it's a completely understandable decision from him. He must create some complications. Now I'm presented with a question of how to deal with this move. So I'm not entirely sure. Let's take this rook first of all. Now whenever I want, I have this nice tempo here with the rook, which I might or I might not use, because if I play rook d1 here, he just plays queen e7 and puts further pressure on the pawn on h4. One move that I like here from white is queen h3. It's looking at the knight on h5, and it's also kind of, in a way, pinning the black knight on e6. Looks solid enough for me. Actually, now I saw another idea which tempts me quite a lot. Once again, as I said, this square was weakened by his last move, so I have this route of knight d6 and then knight f5. So maybe the move rook d1 actually is not so bad as I initially thought. Let's go rook d1. Now he will definitely play queen e7. Now this is a threat that I must respond to, so I think I will just take the pawn. Now he could take with the pawn, he could also take with the knight, so I'm not really going to try to figure exactly how he will take, but I think anyway I will go for my plan. So black has no threat, it seems like everything is covered in my camp, so let's go, knight d6. Now I really like this move knight d6 because not only I have this idea of knight f5, also now my bishop is coming back to life on the long diagonal. So practically all of white's pieces now are very active pieces. So I think all of the strategic advantages are with white in this position. But of course black still have some hope because he has some piece concentration on the king side, so basically everything could happen. I'm quite pessimistic about black's chances now. My knight is landing on f5 and I believe it's quite brutal. Also, I can also delay this move knight f5 in order to play queen h3. This is also extremely tempting move. Yes, queen h3 looks great actually. Now also my queen is joining the game. I have a tempo on the knight. I put additional pressure on this knight on e6. And now whenever the knight moves from h5, I have the option of capturing this pawn on h6. So I would go as far as saying that white is just winning in this position. Yeah, and he plays knight f4, so he's obviously desperate. I think I can just take it. Yeah, knight f4, once again, it's a very understandable decision, but it's just nothing. Now I think it's a good time to play knight to f5, winning a tempo against the queen. And his attack, or whatever you want to call it, is really counting to nothing here. I can play really almost anything here. Bishop d4, I think it's the simplest. Let's just do it. I think I practically force him to take on d4 in this case, but then he's losing perhaps his only potentially dangerous piece. And now, okay, the fact that black even continuing this position is quite silly to me. White not only having the material advantage, also his knight on f5 is such a beast here. Okay, he wants to play. It's actually only my pleasure to play such a position. Just a beautiful position from white. And now I believe just e5 is crushing because the queen has only one square. Yeah, so he finally resigned. So yeah, he also wrote to me good game on the chat, and yeah, I think it was actually a good game. There are some tricky moments, I think, after the opening. So yeah, this variation, as you can see, the computer is not too much optimistic about black's chances. He always says that white is better, not by a lot, but yeah, a 0.5 advantage by move 10 is quite nice, I believe. So yeah, it all went in white's favor, but yeah, apparently I played the best move, also the move from e1 looks like the best move. So yeah, actually the position, the computer is not at all impressed with black's position here. I was afraid of knight f4, queen f1, something like queen d7, but yeah, it appears that I can always chase this knight away. so it's not as weird. And I'm very much surprised that the move stay here. To me, it seems like it's such a natural move. Unbelievable. Yeah, but I just ran. Yeah, and now he made a huge mistake. He had to play queen takes d2 as I said, and take on f3 and then take on d2. Yeah, this is the kind of position I saw in my head, that the position is equal in material, but black is getting very active with his pieces, so it should be around equal, maybe even slightly more comfortable for black to play because it's very active. But yeah, he just made a very big mistake. Yeah, now computer did not like my move bishop a2. He said that I should just take, and I have the advantage. But I believe also here I have a quite a nice advantage. Yeah, so it's already plus 1.5 almost. And yes, and now yeah, just here I just have a crushing advantage almost. Yeah. So seems like quite a solid game. I enjoyed it very much. Hope you enjoyed it as well. It was a very positional type of game, um, and yeah, I happy to have this opportunity to play such a game. So anyway, thank you guys for watching. See you next time. Bye bye.